Hey everyone, this is Mr. Mott. What I want to do is go over the steps in our foul water lab and sort of how that works. The first thing we're going to cover today is actually something that wasn't in our foul water lab, but it could be involved in sort of a cleaning process of a water sample. The first thing we might use is a separatory funnel. And a separatory funnel, what it would do is that if you had liquids of different densities that you wanted to separate out, you could pour them into a separatory funnel. And so something that we ought to be aware of is that in this picture here, when the liquids settle out, your least dense liquid is going to be at the top, and then at the bottom is going to be, so then I guess the red, I guess I should have written that in red there. Our red would be our least dense, and our blue would be our most dense. All right, so this is our most dense right there. So if you were to use a separatory funnel, they have this this little spigot here, this little handle, and what that would do, you'd turn that and you would open it, and then the blue layer would slowly, all the layers would sort of drain, and when you reach this point, this interface here, that's when you would stop. And then you'd take that blue liquid and you'd set it aside and put another beaker underneath, and then you drain the white liquid out, and the red liquid would be left over. So that's how a separatory funnel works. We didn't have to use that because we didn't have anything that's in there, like different layers, like we didn't have oil and water or anything like that. All right, but we just wanted to explain that step just in case you needed to do that. The next part is our sand gravel filter. I want to explain sort of how that works. So you couldn't see on the inside of our sand gravel filter, but the way we made it was that we put layers of gravel, these larger pieces here. This is the gravel. And then these little dots here represent sand. And what we did was that we sort of layered it until the cup got full. And so we layered sand, gravel, and what happened when our foul water wanted to go through, all right, so as the water kind of trickled through, anything that was too big to fit between the layers of the gravel or the sand, it would get stuck. So our pencil shavings, our coffee grounds, things like that, all those things got stuck in between there, and so we basically filter them by particle size. Okay, so that's what we that's how the sand gravel filter worked. Next, we had the charcoal adsorption, and so let's say we had a zoom in on a piece of charcoal. Okay, what we would have for our charcoal is that we put the charcoal in our water and we shook it around. And what we wanted to see happen is that we wanted the charcoal really to get mixed in that foul water. And what was happening is that all those odor-causing particles were adsorbing, okay, to the charcoal. So they're actually forming on the outside. If we were using the word absorbed, then the particles would be on the middle like a sponge. A sponge absorbs. But our charcoal, what was happening is all these odor-causing particles were attaching themselves to the outside of the charcoal. All right, and when we filtered out all the charcoal, all these odor-causing particles that adsorb to the outside, the charcoal would get stuck in the filter paper, and then likewise, since the odor-causing particles here, all these are causing odor, they would get filtered out as well. So in a sense, you have kind of two things happening. The adsorption is attaching the odor-causing particles to the charcoal. However, you also have sort of a particle size filtering happening, sort of like we did in the charcoal, or excuse me, sort of like we did in the sand gravel step. All right. The last step we had was the distillation step. And the distillation, at this point, the water was really, really clean, except for it was conductive. And so those conducting particles you couldn't see in there, but we knew they were in there because they were conducting electricity. If we had pure water, it would not conduct electricity. So in my picture here, the blue represents the water, and the green would represent the conducting particles. So what we were trying to happen was that when we boiled it, what you'd have is that you'd have all those steam particles traveling through our tube here, and then when they reach this area, what was going to happen is that we were hoping to cool everything down. What we had, I guess I should draw it in here, we had a beaker we had a graduated cylinder, and then we had a bunch of ice cubes around it. So we had ice cubes in water. All right, use your imagination. Those are some ice cubes there. And what we're trying to create is a cold environment. And so when the steam hit our cold environment there, it was going to condense back into droplets of water, which collected on the bottom there in our graduated cylinder. And so when this happened, only the water in the form of steam would come out of the round bottom flask through the tube. And what would happen is that these odor-causing particles here, these should have been left behind. Now, that's the reason at the end of the lab we say don't boil the last little bit of water away, because that last little bit of water contains the particles that cause conductivity. All right. So that was the idea behind the distillation step. Hopefully that kind of clarifies our foul water in terms of how each step worked. All right. Thanks for watching.